Welcome to the Myth and Magic Authors Podcast, folklore and fantasy topics aimed at creative storytellers. To write stories and challenge your brain with exciting ideas, delve into these presentations and reflections. See how fantasy realms are based on actual world history, legend, and lore. Study fairy tales, nature fables, and supernaturalism to engage in a jumble of concepts that will trigger your fancy and get you writing imaginatively. Now, here's your host, Neil Mack.
Felicitations of the season, fantasy fiction fans and fellow fantasy creatives. We know what felicity means, don't we? It means bliss, and it means happiness, and it means joy, and it means pleasure. And that's why it's related to this happy time of the year. That's why we say felicitations of the season. But who was Felicity? Well, actually, it's quite a harrowing tale. Felicitas of Rome, which is spelled Felicitas, and it's where the word and the name Felicity comes from, was a wealthy and a pious Christian widow who lived in the polytheistic Rome at around year 105, and she'd given birth to 7 boy children. She had devoted herself to charity, and she'd converted along the way many Romans to the Christian faith, and she did this through living by good example. Her way of life and her openness about being a Christian aroused the wrath of the pagan priests in Rome, who, after seeing her successfully evangelize, lodged a complaint against her before the Emperor Marcus Aurelius. And these priests affirmed that they should get some kind of sacrifice for Felicitas and for her children and for their Christianity and their Christian views. So the emperor acceded to their demands, and Felicitas was brought before Publius, who was the prefect of Rome. Prefect was kind of the chief of police. Taking Felicitas's side, Publius, this prefect of Rome, who's kind of a little bit of a good guy in this story, he used various entreaties and threats in a failed attempt to get Felicitas to worship the pagan gods and to give up Christianity. But she wouldn't do it. And he was equally unsuccessful with her 7 sons, who all of them, each one of them, followed their mother's example and wouldn't give up Christianity. So Prefect Publius failed, and the brothers adhered to their religion, and so they were delivered to 4 judges for sentencing. And these 4 judges sentenced each of the 7 sons of Felicitas to various forms of death. And at the judgment, Felicitas herself implored that she would not be killed before her sons, so that she might encourage them during their torture and during their death, in order that they would not deny Christ when they felt weak. And so thus, with joy, she accompanied each of her children to their place of execution, and she stayed with each of them until she witnessed their death. And she did this with all of her 7 sons. Although we're not entirely sure how each of the children died, we are told that Janarius, which is the oldest son, is said to have been flogged to death. Felix and Felipe were beaten with sticks until they died. Silvanus was thrown off of a cliff, and I think the youngest sons, which I think were Alejandro, Vitalis and Martialis, were all beheaded. After each execution, Felicitas had the opportunity to denounce her own faith, but she refused to denounce her faith on each of the 7 separate times. So at the end of this terrible ordeal, watching your own sons executed, she then was also martyred herself. And people who knew about this and people who witnessed it and people who watched it remarked that Felicity died 8 times, because she died once with each of her children and then finally in her own death. And of course the consequence of this was the complete opposite of what the pagan authorities in Rome actually wanted, because she incited, through her strength of character and through her sheer will, she incited and really caused many other people to think about Christianity and to follow the teachings of Christ and to move away from pagan ideas, which after all, when you see it like this, you realise how cruel they were. So when we say felicitations of the season, yes, we mean bliss, happiness, joy and pleasure, but it comes at a cost. What is epiphany? So another word you hear at this time of the year is the word epiphany. And in fact, we're in the season of epiphany right now. And I'm sure you know what that means. Epiphany means manifestation or a surprising or a striking appearance. We call them the eureka moments. So I'm going to quickly discuss epiphanies with you, but at the end I'm going to give you 5 helpful personal epiphanies that I think you as an author should look for in the coming year. Often epiphanies are triggered by new or crucial information, and I think that's the key to it. That's the key to the epiphany. That unlocks the epiphany. And it's because the thinker in the epiphany moment is missing the crucial piece of the puzzle that makes sense of the whole picture, makes the whole picture complete. A perfect example of a scientific epiphany is Isaac Newton's sudden understanding that a falling apple, or an apple he watched fall, and an orbiting moon are both pulled by the same invisible forces, in other words, gravity. Don't forget, Newton had been studying the works of Galileo and Thomas Street and Johann Kepler since the age of, probably earlier, but certainly from the age of 21, so that was 1664. His thoughts on gravitation were published in 1687. So therefore, during the intervening 23 years, he'd built up his knowledge about science and about physics and about mathematics. And at some point, we presume it was 1666, he had his aha moment when he saw the apple falling, and that's how he put together his theory of gravity. Originally, and this is an important point to make, epiphanies were viewed as a special insight that had been bestowed upon the human by some kind of divine grace. So in other words, an epiphany was a gift from heaven. Separate the supernatural for a moment, so put aside the supernatural explanation. It seems that epiphanies require certain preconditions before they just happen. And I'm putting scare quotes around the word just, because I don't think epiphanies do just happen. I think there's a lot of preparation involved before you get to the eureka moment. If you want to use the notion of epiphany in your own fiction, you might want to know what the preconditions of epiphany are. And I've put some thought to this and I think I've worked it out. Are you ready? These are the preconditions of epiphany. Number 1, experience. The beholder, I call the person who's experienced an epiphany a beholder. The beholder is intimate with the problem or the issue before any manifestation. So if you think about Isaac Newton laying in the grass and looking at the apple tree, he was already intimate with the problem about forces and about invisible forces before he saw the apple fall. Number 2, memory. The beholder has already stored lots of information about this topic. Don't forget, Newton worked for 23 years. It was only some time during that 23 years that he had the eureka moment. Knowledge. The beholder is already familiar with the different concepts and the assumptions, some of those might be opposing, around this topic. So he's already discussed the pros and cons of something. And number 4, predisposition. The beholder has the will, and perhaps even the burning desire, to confront the unsolvable. Number 5, context. The beholder has arranged or perhaps designed an appropriate point of view or a perspective so that the manifestation will occur. And so you often hear about people going up a mountain or doing some meditation, and that's when they had their eureka moment. Eureka moment might be in the bath and the bathwater splashing over the top, or it might be an apple falling from the tree. But you've taken an appropriate point of view, or you've changed your perspective in such a way that the manifestation will occur. If all of those things I just listed are present, then the beholder can be hit on the head if he's prepared for it, or if she is prepared for it. So I said I'd finished, and I wanted to wish you a very, very peaceful and loving and Merry Christmas, and I want you to look after yourself and be very, very, very careful, and look after your friends and be kind and considerate. And here I wanted to finish with 5 helpful personal epiphanies that I think as an author you should look out for. Remember, go through the list again, be prepared for these epiphanies to hit you on the head. And here we go. Here's my first one. You are what you are. You're not what anybody else tells you you are. Not what people say you are. You are what you are inside yourself. My second one is this. The journey of learning and of growth and of development is more important than the destination. And here's my third epiphany. Nothing is ever completed. Nothing. So celebrate the process of doing rather than the process of achieving. And my fourth one is this. Emotional pain gives you a meaning to life. So pain is an essential part of living. And finally, my fifth helpful personal epiphany for an author. This is the one you should look out for. This is the one you should wait to be hit on the head with. Properly prepare for epiphany. And in the process, you will find yourself and you will find your life's reward. Good luck with it all, and have a peaceful, prosperous and safe Christmas. And happy holidays to everybody who is not Christian. See you soon. Bye.